Hi everybody, Dave here. Today I'm going to talk about the Ford Death Wobble. If you look on the internet, it's something people talk about with the newer Ford trucks. I've been involved with Ford work trucks since the 80s. My dad had a trucking company and we had like F-250s back then, and with the diesel engines before the turbo. And, they're good work trucks, you know. And then in the 90s I worked for a motorcycle racing team. I was a driver mechanic. And we had Ford trucks, the heavy duty, like 350s. Every year or two, we get a new one. So I've been around them a lot. I probably got hundreds of thousands of miles driving them. In the late 90s, I worked with Ford and Chevrolet with a engineering firm doing suspension dynamics, vehicle suspension dynamics. And I learned a lot about it, and it was something I was interested in for a little while. And after that, I owned my own company, and we did mechanical contracting, and I had some work trucks then too. So like I said, I've been around them a lot. So this truck here is a 2000 F350, and I think it's the best truck Ford ever made. Until 2005, they had this 7.3 and this basic setup, and I mean, I can't believe, well, I guess I can, that Ford screwed everybody and made worse trucks. You know, I know how it happened. When I was working at Ford in the late 2000s, late 90s, they had it was the end of an era. There was a bunch of engineers that were retiring, and they built this stuff and some of the other vehicles, and they were the best vehicles ever made. And then it got turned over to these younger engineers who were a bunch of dickweeds. They don't give a shit about nothing, you know. They only care about the way they look, you know. And what happened, in my opinion, is they just stopped caring. You know, they just started caring about making more money. They're just overpriced junk now. You know, the Raptor is cool, but it's a toy. It's not a work truck, you know. And to get to the guts of the Death Wobble, which I can't believe, them trucks should be taken off the road. They're so dangerous. But what happened is they went from, like, these trucks have like 3 or 4 degrees of caster in the front end. And caster gives you your straight line stability. If you want to know how it works, there's lots of videos on the internet of how it works, but it gives you the straight line stability. The more caster, the heavier the feel on the steering wheel. And these are like 3 or 4, I don't know for sure, but they went to like a 1 degree of caster, which, you know, they wanted to make it feel like a car and have it light steering, which it's dangerous. It's super dangerous, because when you go to 0 caster is when you get this wobble. And what's happening is, I see these guys on the internet, you know, they actually demonstrate it, and the thing, it's terrible. I mean, I wouldn't drive one of them trucks, but what I see on these trucks is they've jacked up the back end too much. If you look, they've got airbags on it, they added an extra leaf or something, and they jacked up the back end. And what's happening is, as you add rake to the frame, the wedge they call it in NASCAR, the caster goes to 0, because when you raise the back end, you're tilting the chassis forward, and the caster goes to 0, and that's where you get this wobble from. My opinion to fix it, there's 2 different ways. I don't know about the first one, but you could do some sort of a wedge block in the front, so you could tip you can't adjust caster in these heavy duty front ends, it's just set. So you'd have to like put a wedge block in and add a couple more degrees of caster, which is, I don't know, I'd have to put the thing on a surface plate and take it all apart and see if that would screw anything else up, but it would probably work. But the best thing to do would be to make sure that your suspension in the back doesn't go any higher than your stock height. You'd have to like limit the suspension with a strap or something, you know, so that you don't get the rear end jacked up. But in my opinion, them trucks should be taken off the road because they're dangerous. You see the guys, what compounds the problem is, when you go into the Death Wobble, you create drag. And the drag makes the front end of the truck dive, which even makes it worse. I can't believe Ford did that. I mean, they must have idiots running the show. I'd never buy one, and that's all I have to say. All right, I was kidding. I wasn't done talking. I forgot to say something about the engines in these. This truck here is a 2000. It's got 250,000 miles on it, and it runs as good as new. In 2005, for my work truck, I bought the newer ones with the 6.0, and everybody knows those things had a huge amount of problems. I mean, every 5,000 miles the turbo was going out of it, they wanted thousands of dollars. It was under warranty, of course, at first. But you know what happens after the warranty? You know, you got to spend like $12,000 now to bulletproof an engine. You know, I mean, what happened with those guys? Why did they ruin their equipment? Why did they ruin their trucks? And then they went to the, I think it was 6.0, then they went to the 6.7. And that's a throwaway engine. It's designed to last 150,000 miles, and you can't rebuild it, and you throw it away. What is wrong with these people? What is wrong? You know, I mean, you know, when you especially small business people that rely on these trucks, when you've got just a couple of them and one is laid up, I mean, it can ruin your business. You know, you got to rely on your equipment. And now the newer ones, I think it's a 6.9 or something with that DEF fluid. I know they can't do nothing about the DEF, and that's government. But why did they ruin them? You know, it doesn't make any sense. I think it's poor engineering. We see that all the time. I mean, look at Boeing. You know, instead of building a new plane for the new engine, they hacked a new engine on an old plane, and they did it for profit. They could have designed a new plane for the new engine, but they didn't. And they let people die. They let 2 planes crash. And our engineering in the United States is suffering dearly because people don't hire the best engineer. They hire somebody's brother-in-law. And that's truly what's happening. Thank you again.